I would first like to thank Provost Bro Juno for supporting this series, because it would not be possible without her. And the mission of the series is that faculty members should not be siloed in their classrooms. They should have access to audiences wider than their classrooms. And in doing so, in providing this opportunity, we're also trying to further break down the barriers between different departments, different colleges, and the university and the communities, so that we can all share ideas, our interests, and well, things we research, we work on, and well, would like to share with as wide an audience as possible. And without further, that's the mission of our committee. That's why we have started and organized this speaker series. And our speaker today is Tim Connolly, Associate Professor and Chair of Philosophy and Religious Studies. He teaches and writes about philosophy and culture, and is especially interested in Chinese philosophy. His first book, Doing Philosophy Comparatively, was published by Bloomsbury in 2015, and his second book, Foundations of Confucian Ethics, Virtues, Roles, and Selves, will be published by Rowman and Littlefield in December 2017. And without further ado, here is Dr. Tim Connolly.
Thank you for coming to my talk, especially on a day like today. I know what that means, and I will always remember that you came to this talk. Right, so thank you for that. I wanted to start with a question. What do you think will be remembered as the greatest achievement of the early 21st century? Just in case you can't think of it offhand, here are some options. Right, the Large Hadron Collider, Skype. I forgot to list YouTube there. Obviously, the iPhone, social media, self-driving cars, Mars rovers, 3D printing, artificial intelligence, human genome research. Anybody want to vote for one of these? Joe, what's your vote? Or you can add something to the list.
I'll go with the human genome research.
Okay, that's number one. Maria?
CRISPR.
Okay, CRISPR. Okay, CRISPR is not on the list. Yeah, what would you say?
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, why?
It's becoming more prevalent every day with Siri, Google Assistant. A lot of different tech companies are working on their own version.
It cuts across a lot of these things, actually, the Mars rover and the self-driving car and the iPhone. Yeah, so I think that's an interesting guess, right? I think these are all wonderful 21st century inventions, but actually I think the best thing about the early 21st century is something different than all these. And the greatest thing about the early 21st century is something different, and that's our television. Right? So this is my candidate for what will be remembered as the greatest contribution of the early 21st century. How many of you have seen one of these shows up here? Just curious. All right, I just picked some of my favorites in the Connolly household. These are some of the shows we watch, not all together, trust me. How many of you have seen like 3 of these shows, would you say? All right, Emily, what's the best one up there? Stranger Things, okay. Nick, what's the best one up there?
Probably Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, okay, okay. Kyle, what's the best one?
I'd probably go with Breaking Bad as well.
Okay, Breaking Bad as well. You know, we're living in the golden age of television. Cultural observers actually call it the golden age of television. And if you look at the data, it's pretty remarkable. In 2010, there were 210 original scripted series. In 2016, there were 455 original scripted series. So just in that 5 or 6 year period, the number of series more than doubled. Right? They're on more and more channels. Some observers said in 2016, that's when we hit peak TV. Right? Have you heard this expression before? Peak TV? That means, like, you can't get any more shows. There's too many to watch already. So this model, this number of shows is unsustainable. It's just going to go down. So critics are saying 2016 we hit peak TV. And I think what's more remarkable is the quality of some of these shows. If you wanted to learn about a 19th century English city, you could go and read Charles Dickens, right, back then, and you could wait for each new little piece to come out. If you want to learn about a 21st century American city, you can watch The Wire, right? Or you can watch Atlanta, or you can watch any other number of these shows. So I think the quality of these shows is something remarkable too. Several of them focus on the dark side of technology. I think that's the theme. How many of you have seen one of these shows? I'm just curious. Okay, most of you. So one is Mr. Robot on USA, which is about a group of rebel hackers. And then there's Westworld on HBO. And then there's Black Mirror, which is a British show, but it's now streaming 3 seasons on Netflix. So you can watch all 3 of them. And I find there are just 2 kinds of students I talk to at the university. There are ones that have never heard of Black Mirror, don't know what it is, and there's ones who have heard of it and who have binge-watched all of it, like at once. So maybe that's some of you in the audience here. What I do in my research is I look at different aspects of a culture, and I try to figure out from those aspects, like art or technology or ritual, what it says about the overall worldview of that culture, what it says about their philosophy, what it says about their outlook on life. And I like to use comparison as a means of understanding cultural values and cultural identity. And if you are, say, a 26th century historian, and you're looking back at the early 21st century, and you're looking at that as a pivotal moment in human history, and you're trying to figure out what was it about this early 21st century that was remarkable and that was unique and that was interesting, and you see this cluster of shows, what conclusions are you going to draw from the fact that we had shows like this all around? I mean, you already know there was this rapid growth in technology, right? Social media, iPhones, Skype, and the like, right? But I think you will realize people are always also very worried about technology. They're very worried, right? So technology has given us all of these good things, but maybe it's also given us a lot of worries. Here are just a few of them, right? Loss of agency in our lives. A lot of the things that human beings used to do, right, now human beings don't do anymore. So people might be worried about keeping their jobs, actually, rather than having their job outsourced to a robot. A decrease in empathy, right? Technology changes our relationships. Information bubbles, right? You might get your news from only a few sources, and those sources are different from the ones I get my news from. That means we can't really talk to one another. If those 3 don't do it for you, there's always cyber terrorism to worry about, right? My advice is don't look into it. Don't look into it at all, because what you find will be very troubling. Like what cyber terrorism would do, it doesn't just affect computers, right? But they could attack our transportation system, right? Or our power grid, right? Or they could steal private data. These are just a few I thought of. Government and corporate surveillance. I think that's a big theme in that show, Mr. Robot. Did anybody hear about the legislation that was just passed in Congress that says your internet service provider can take your data and they can sell it to the highest bidder, just signed by our president on Monday, right? So this is a very new issue we didn't have to worry about a while ago. Decrease in attention and other cognitive functions, loss of physical and mental well-being, robot overlords. There's all sorts of things to worry about. And I think Black Mirror is maybe the best show that talks about these kinds of worries. It's a very dark show. I wrote down some of the things that critics have said about the show. So it's very often compared to The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone also on Netflix in its full version. And Black Mirror is like Twilight Zone in another respect, in that it doesn't have a linear plot. So it doesn't have a set of characters who appear from one show to the next, from one season to the next, and develop over time. But each episode is unique. So you can watch any episode on its own without knowing anything else about the show. So it's not serialized, but each episode has its own cast of characters. Another critic says, you watch this show, first you're giggling, then you're sobbing. It unsettles as much as it entertains. And I think in a talk about Black Mirror and philosophy, there's a lot of episodes that we could talk about, right? And talk about some of the philosophical themes in these episodes. One of them is called The Entire History of You. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have seen this episode? All right, that's more than I expected. The rest of you need to watch more TV, right? It's the golden age of television. It's the golden age, right? So in the show, the premise is that there's a grain implant that goes behind your ear and records everything that you experience. And you can rewind the tape. You can watch it at any time. The show, by the way, is set in the near future, right? The near future, who knows how near, maybe not too far from where we are now. And there are lots of philosophical themes in that show. We could have a whole lecture about that. There's another episode called Nosedive. How many of you have seen this one, just out of curiosity, right? I think this is one of the best ones. If you want to watch 1 second, you can watch this one, Nosedive. So in this episode, every interaction you have with somebody else is rated, and you get a composite score, and people who have like a 4.5 or above out of 5 are the elite of society, and people who have like a 3 and under are the outcasts. And this poor woman keeps making these social mistakes, and they cause her rating to plunge, and then it ends up ruining her life. So I think there's a lot you could talk about with that episode. I wanted to talk tonight, though, about the most famous episode, which is called White Bear. How many of you have seen this episode? All right. In a dark show, in a show that is nothing but darkness and pessimism about technology, I think this is the darkest episode, right? One critic says, by a significant margin, the most disturbing episode they've produced. That's quite an achievement on this show. It's basically the worst thing the creator has ever written, which you come to realize is the whole point. So I wanted to show you a few clips from the show. It's about 42 minutes long. I guess the question is, what does it all mean? Right? What is it all about? What is the point? Right? What themes are present in the episode? What is the author trying to say about the world we live in? So in my first year experience course, I had the students watch this episode. I told them they could have an alternative assignment if they felt it was too intense. No one opted for the alternative assignment. They all watched it. And they wrote short responses. One set of responses clustered around the nature of justice at this theme park, right? So one student said, all I could think about when the episode was over was whether she really deserved what was happening to her. Another one said, what stood out the most to me was the public's ability to watch the torturing. It wasn't just punishment to them. They truly seemed to enjoy torturing her, right? Another one said, knowing that they do this to her every single day made me question which side is worse. So I think everyone agreed that she should be punished for having committed this murder or having participated in this murder, but everyone agreed also the punishment they are giving her crosses a line, right? It crosses a line, like maybe just on that first day, right? And they're doing the same thing to her day after day after day. What's the purpose of punishment? I wanted to show you some philosophical theories about punishment. But what's your theory? What's punishment supposed to be for? Right? What's the goal of punishing someone? Right? What is punishment supposed to do? Yeah. Okay, it's supposed to teach you a lesson, right? That's actually one big theory of punishment and what punishment is for. Yes?
I was going to say to stop a behavior that was like already
Okay, that's part of the same theory, maybe. Anybody else want to spin a theory? Yes?
To deter others from doing what you
Yeah, I think that's the same one. Deterrence, right? Punishment is meant to deter you, or it's meant to deter other people from doing it, right? So that's but one theory of punishment, right? Another theory is that it's about rehabilitation, right? That's the main purpose. It's to take the person out of society. It's to heal them, put them back into society, a better person, a more productive member of society. Another one is incapacitation, right? You need to take the person out of the society to prevent them from committing more crimes, right? It's like literally to incapacitate them so they can't do the same things that they are doing. But the big theory, the one that I think most philosophers who think about justice and criminal justice follow, is what's called retribution, right? Its punishment is primarily about retribution, right? And what that means is that if your punishment is just, you deserve it, and you have to pay the price for what you've done. And the retribution is supposed to be proportionate, right? Although there's debate about what's proportionate or what's not proportionate, but still there must be retribution, right? So you have committed a crime, right? It swings the scale off balance. The scale must be balanced again. And the scale is balanced by making you pay, right? So this is one big theory of punishment. I think these are the central theories of why we punish a person. But really, the most interesting theory about punishment says it's not about any of these things at all, right? It's not about deterrence, really. It's not about retribution. It might be secondarily about these things, but really it's about something else entirely. What is the real purpose of punishment? Who's read Foucault? All right, well, I'll tell you. Foucault tells you the real purpose of punishment, right? In his book called Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison. You can find a PDF of this book online. It's one of the most fascinating books you'll ever read, but maybe one of the most difficult too. A punishment, he says, is primarily a technique for exercising power. It's primarily about power. And in particular, it's about keeping power relations intact, right? So it's about ensuring the power of one person or set of people over another person or set of people, right? So even if we say it's about retribution, right, really the purpose is power. If we say it's about deterrence, right, it's about deterring other people from what? Usurping our power, right? But the primary purpose is about power. And he says in modern societies, and this is a very interesting idea, the way punishment works is to reinforce certain social norms, right? And thus, prisons are the same part of, they're part of the same institutional mechanism of discipline and control as schools and workplaces, right? We're all part of this big system of discipline, right? Prison is just at one extreme, right? That's where discipline is ultimately reinforced. But in workplaces, at schools, in private homes, we are also working to reinforce these social norms, right? The social norms that the dominant class holds, right? So the dominant class has these norms, right? We enforce them in all parts of our society, right? And if you disobey the norms, we'll punish you, we'll discipline you. And Foucault says also there's a difference between how punishment used to work and how it works today. There's a difference between being punished, say, in the medieval period, right, in Europe, and being punished in the 21st century. Right? And the difference, in some ways it's a subtle difference, but in some ways it's not so subtle. In the pre-modern period, punishment often involved a public spectacle. Right? So you could be publicly tortured, or you could be publicly humiliated, like put in stocks, have a scarlet letter hung around your neck, right? And people could see that happening to you. Or you could be led to the guillotine, right? People see you being led to the guillotine. Maybe they throw vegetables at you or something like that. But the point of punishment was this public spectacle. And the public spectacle was supposed to reinforce the authority of the king or whoever was in power, the ruling class, right? So you see this person has committed a crime. They are publicly humiliated or publicly tortured or publicly killed. It serves as a deterrent to stop other people from committing that crime. And it was often very violent. And the place where you were punished was your body. Right? So your head could be chopped off, or you could be publicly flogged, right? Or you could be put in stocks. Right? The place you were punished was your body. And in modern times, it doesn't work like that. So in modern punishment, punishment is usually hidden from view. How many of you have been driving on a back road in Pennsylvania somewhere, and you realized, oh, around that next hill there's a prison, right? Or there's a juvenile detention center, right? And you never knew it was there before. And maybe if you had never heard of it, you would drive that road many times and you never know the prison's back there, right? Before here, I lived in Buffalo. If you drive up to Buffalo, you see this exit off the highway that says Attica, right? You might think that's a small town in western New York. But Attica, there's a big prison there. These riots that were an important part of American history took place there. But it's just hidden out there in the middle of western New York. So punishment used to be public, now it's private. It used to be out in the open, now it's hidden from our view. The goal is still power, but it's a different kind of power. It's not the authority of the king, but it's the authority of the ruling class. We reject physical violence, right? We think physical violence is inhumane, right? Flogging someone is inhumane, right? You can't even visit that kind of violence on a dog, right? Or you'll get in trouble. And it's not the body, but it's the mind that is the place where you are punished. All right, so what's worse, actually? What's worse? This system of punishment that we identify as medieval and barbaric, or this system of punishment that we identify as more reformed and humane? Like, what's worse? In some ways, this one's actually much worse, right? Think about putting someone in solitary confinement. Would you rather be in solitary confinement for a month? Get like 5 lashes. The one we consider totally inhumane, right? But the other one is just the daily business of being punished. Yes?
Yeah, I think that just the one person who got off the hook, which is the Casey Anthony trial in 2008, I mean, obviously she didn't go to prison, but I mean, in her life, I can't even imagine how that, how much I mean, I don't know if she's suffering.
The suffering is mental, right?
Mental.
It's mental, but in some ways that psychological suffering is worse. So it's not visited on the body, it's visited on the mind. Yeah. And maybe we're mistaken in thinking the system's been reformed. In Black Mirror, this episode of Black Mirror, which kind of punishment is it? Who said both? Yeah. Go ahead.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so horrible and dark, is it's a combination of both kinds of punishment. So there's a public spectacle, right? But really it's deeply psychological damage that they're inflicting on this person. Yes?
There's a justice in it as well, because she's reliving it every day. Imagine what the parents are living, having lost a child. So to me,
there's some kind of retribution, right? But it goes overboard, right? It goes.
I don't believe it is. If you lost a child, in the way that the parents lost the child, what must they go through every day? Could it be any worse than what she's going through?
Right, but it's not as altering of their identity. But I see the point you're making. I see the point you're making.
I think also that the people surrounding that want to kind of have this elitist type feeling over someone else. Maybe because in their lives they aren't that great of a person. So this is kind of a magnet to where they can say, I'm better than this person.
All right, I'm better. All right, it makes you worried. Another cluster of reactions from my students focused on the phones and the role that technology played in this punishment. So somebody said, the part that really stuck out to me was how the spectators were so worried about getting the moment on their phones, they weren't trying to stop, right? Another person said, all these people were so focused on watching and capturing what was going on right in front of them, they didn't see what was actually happening, right? Another one said, I couldn't help but to relate their actions with the problem with social media now, how everyone would rather watch an incident happen rather than help. I think this is an interesting idea. Watching someone is a kind of power, right? The ability to watch somebody, especially without them watching you. That's a very subtle, but in some ways very profound sort of power. Foucault again says, traditionally power was what was seen, what was shown, and what was manifested. Disciplinary power, on the other hand, is exercised through its invisibility. At the same time, it imposes on those whom it subjects a principle of compulsory visibility. In discipline, it is the subjects who have to be seen. Right? So what that means is, traditionally, the person who wanted to be seen was the king. Right? The king is up on his throne. Look at me, I'm powerful. The way power works in our society isn't that way at all. It's not the people in charge who are seen. Who's the one who's seen? It's you and me, right? It's the people who are the subjects of that sort of power who are the ones who are being watched all the time, right? Whereas the people in power go unseen, right? So think about security cameras. Where do you put a security camera? I mean, does the security camera go in the office of the most powerful person in the society, or does it go in the place where the most disenfranchised people in the society live? Where does it go, Professor?
Second.
Okay, the second one, why?
Why does it go to the disenfranchised?
Yes. Why are they the ones who are visible now? It used to be the king. Now it's the least powerful people who are watched.
Because being watched by those in power, I guess they're a lot like her in the sense that they're being, it's not a punishment, it's not a discipline, but they're being watched.
Yeah. It does something. It does something to you. Being watched does something
But
to your
also,
behavior.
But by being watched, you become immune to that, and that's what happens with a lot of social media, a lot of kids, in terms of their privacy, they don't care. And I think the disenfranchised and a lot of students don't care.
Maybe not, but maybe they should care. Maybe they should
no,
care.
but they don't.
Yes. Yes. All right. We will talk more. We will talk more. I think it's very interesting ideas that you've just stated. Mick, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's sort of a combination of two things. Sort of that the person in power, obviously they're above any sort of activity that's worthy of being captured on film. Nothing that they do is going to be seen as something reprehensible. I think it's a combination of that and kind of the opposite of what you were talking about in medieval society, where the cameras are on us. Look how much better I am than them by showing the people that are on that lower level, more common people.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. How many of you have seen an image like this before? Why is the prison set up that way? Actually, this was a famous innovation in how prisons were set up. Right? When you think of the medieval prison, what do you think of? The dungeon. Right? It's deep and dark and damp, and you can't see the people down there. Right? This sort of prison is called the Panopticon. Pan means everything. Opticon means seeing. Right? So it's like the all-seeing prison. And the way the Panopticon works is there's a central guard tower. And the central guard tower is surrounded by this circled set of cells that are tiered. And the whole point of the prison is from the central guard tower, you can see into every single cell. And in fact, there might not even need to be a person in that central guard tower in order for it to be effective, right? All that needs to happen is for the person to feel the threat of being watched. And if you feel the threat of being watched, that will subtly alter your behavior, right? Just knowing that they are there looking at you will change how you act. Foucault says visibility is a trap. Professor, this is the one we need to talk about, right? Visibility is a trap. The prisoner in the Panopticon is seen, but he does not see. He's the object of information, but never the subject in communication. The major effect of the Panopticon is to induce in the inmate a state of conscious and permanent visibility that assures the automatic functioning of power, right? So being seen without in turn being able to see who is looking at you, that's what keeps you in subjection, right? If you can see the person watching you, right, then you are on the same level of power relation. But if they can see you, you can't see them. That's the definition of being in a prison, right? How many of you have seen the show Brain Games before? Right? Some of you really need to watch more TV, right? You really do. One of my students yesterday, I was talking about Foucault and this idea, and one of my students told me about this episode of Brain Games, where they have a big pot of money, and it's in a public square somewhere, and they put the pot of money out there with a sign that says free money. And then they observe what happens. So what happens is people go and take the money, right? First one person sees, oh, there's free money. Then some other people come over, they take some more of the money, right? The money's gone very quickly. So in Brain Games, they wonder, what can we do without having a person physically there to prevent people from taking the money? Anybody seen this episode? What do? They put a picture of a set of eyes, a large picture of a set of eyes, right above the pot of money. What do you think happens when they put the set of eyes there? No one takes the money. No one takes the money, right? So just the feeling of being watched, right, is enough to prevent people's bad behavior. And I think this is one of the big messages of the show. Foucault wrote about this in the 1970s. I think in the last 40 or 50 years, it's gotten much, much worse. I think one of the messages of this episode is we have this new technology, and the new technology gives us the ability to watch each other. And it gives us the ability to judge each other and punish each other. It used to be that if I thought you did something wrong, I only had one option. My one option would be to confront you face to face. Or it would be to get somebody to confront you face to face. But really, face to face confrontation was the only way that I could exercise some sort of judgment upon you. What can I do these days? Right? I see you doing something wrong, I can just record you, and I can post it online, right? And then we will all judge you together. So not only does it make judgments, a lot worse in degree, but also, if I confront you face to face, I have to listen to what you're going to say back to me, right? If you say, well, actually, I don't think that was wrong, or let me explain myself, right? I have to listen to you, right? But now I don't have to listen, right? So I can watch you at a remove, I can judge you, I can exercise that judgment as a means of punishment. How worried should we be about something like this? Do you think this episode is too over the top, or what? I mean, is it too dark about our current situation? Is it exaggerating? Is it making it sound worse than it actually is?
I think so.
It is making it sound worse. Okay. Yeah, Mick, what do you think?
After Eric Frein killed those police officers, there was sort of this mentality where, be on the lookout for him. His picture was everywhere, and I think it would have been similar if we had, I think if we were that next step into kind of dystopian territory, it would be the same thing, because it was sort of like a watch for him. And I think that if we had the ability to track him, via video camera, I think people would have gladly watched.
Yes. So in this theme park, right, it's part justice, part entertainment, right, part outlet for human cruelty, right? It's like a mixture of all those things. Yes, please, Professor.
But in this park, though, in that show, these people are willing to actually witness her, and most people don't want to actually be there.
All right, are the people who go pay a fee to be in this park better or worse?
I think at that point, then that's an over-exaggeration of what humans would do.
Okay, maybe it wouldn't be that bad. All right, I hope not. I hope not. Please.
I think in some ways it's actually similar to some events of history. I mean, thinking of when like black people were lynched, that it was seen as like a viewing as like some kind of consuming to see somebody get burned.
Yeah, so technology takes us back to those days, right? I mean, we're doing it at a remove, right? We're doing it without participating in it physically and having to suffer the consequences.
I think it gives us, with technology, it gives us this autonomy. Like we don't have our own feeling of our own.
Maybe we're not invested in it. We're not invested in it. All right. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I think that while we have all of the technology of surveillance and so forth going on in this way, I think that as a society, in terms of our laws and the legal protections that we have, and I'm taking the United States right now, and the Western world, the democratized world as we call it, I think we're moving in the opposite direction right now. As you said, we're not allowed now to impose harm on an animal, and that would include even withholding medication or surgery from an animal that an animal needs, or we could end up prosecuted. So I think we're actually moving in the opposite direction. But I also think the situation of Eric Fine is a completely different situation. I don't think it's analogous to this at all, because the man had stated his desire to do as much damage as he could to become famous as a result of it. And so people had a legitimate concern about in this case, the people in power had a legitimate responsibility to try to protect people from the region where they thought he was.
Yes, it's a different sort of case. Yeah.
And the people living in that area spent a lot of sleepless nights, worrying about their children. Some of them people from here on campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the situations were. Now I think what was like it is this, okay, and that is CNN shows up here on campus and they want to do a story. But the story they want to do is not the story of Eric Fine, it's a story linking him to ESU because he had once been a student at ESU. This actually happened. And so when they were deprived of the opportunity of turning ESU into this production factory for a person like Eric Fine, which they wanted to do, then they left East Stroudsburg and went home.
All right. How many of you knew this bit of ESU folklore? I mean, that part about it I didn't know, right? When was this? When was it?
That was within
2013 or?
Yeah, that was within the first few days.
Okay, ESU folklore. I had this assignment that I gave my students, the easiest quiz ever, right? We needed a break at this time of year, and the assignment was make a meme that conveys your biggest worry about technology. Any guesses for what the number one worry was? Yes, what's your guess?
I don't know.
Okay. I wonder if yours will be up here. All right, we'll see. We'll see. I've collected a few of them. What do you think was the biggest worry, you people? Yeah.
It'll turn on us?
Okay, no. That's I would have guessed something like that. Our technology will turn on us. Nick, what is your guess?
Yeah, I think like something like people's biggest worry is like their phone dying or something like that.
Okay, impossible. All right, actually, the most common response had to do with your phone dying. Right. I didn't make these myself, right? I just collected them off our D2L thread, right? Some of them are brilliant. All right. The second biggest worry was about social relationships, right? That somehow having phones out all the time was changing the way people related to each other, right? When your mom is scrolling on Facebook instead of listening to your problems. All right. Okay. A couple were worried about addiction. Right? It somehow prevents sleep. Here's my personal favorite. All right, very interesting, very interesting. I'm going to find out who did this one. All right, what's the message of these shows? I think the message is actually, it could be much worse. It could be much worse than just your phone dying, right? Technology may be more dangerous than we think, right? So it may give us all of these advantages, but it also provides an outlet for some dark stuff, some tendencies of human nature that are maybe pretty bad. How many of you have heard of Justine Sacco? This is a story from, I think, back in 2011 or 2012. Justine Sacco was a public relations executive, or she worked in a public relations firm. She was about to get on a plane to South Africa to visit her family there. And she wrote a tweet that said, "Going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS and die. It's okay, I'm white." Right? So it's like two pretty bad things she said in that tweet, right, at once. She said she was trying to make some sort of subtle point about white privilege, right, but the point got lost on Twitter. So she sent the tweet, got on the plane to South Africa, 11-hour flight. By the time she was midway there, somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, it was the #1 tweet on Twitter, right? She had only 150 followers, but her account was public, right? It was the #1 trending tweet on Twitter. There was a hashtag, has Justine landed yet? Right? And the idea was she's going to land, she's going to see thousands of hate messages, right? She's going to check her phone, and oh my gosh, she's going to realize she paid the price, right? The article is about what happened to Justine Sacco as a result. She just shrugged it off, went on her merry way, right? Everything was fine. Actually, what happened is she got fired from her job. She said she cried for days on end, right? She still gets hate messages from people, right? She says she can't date, right? Because you Google someone you're dating, right? And you see that's Justine Sacco. That's the Justine Sacco, right? Who was publicly humiliated. So this reporter wrote a book, a whole book about people like this called So You've Been Publicly Shamed. You should check out this book if you think the Black Mirror scenario is too far-fetched, right? Because you will realize actually in a lesser degree stuff like this happens all the time. Public shaming is a real thing. And I would say public shaming is back in style, right? It's back in style. It went out of style, right? Maybe around 1800, right? Maybe that's what we'll be remembered for in the early 21st century, right? It's when public shaming came back in style. And if you don't believe me, just Google Justine Sacco and you will find out. All right, thank you very much for listening to me at this talk. I'm all done now, so thank you for coming. All right, anybody want to ask a question? Or let's just do some quick lightning round questions and all go our merry way. How about that? Yes?
Why do you think, I mean, it's appropriate for, in the episode with the Hated in the Nation, which ties in deeply with shaming online and everything like that, you think there's a need for people to have this desire to want to one-up someone else by saying, you know, you suck because of what you did, and it makes them kind of feel better about themselves in that place. And then that guy who, I don't want to give it away, but he killed everyone who did that. Everyone. I mean, do you think there's a sick desire from people who haven't done anything wrong to shame others? Is there a sick desire?
It taps into some deep part of human nature. That's what I think. All right, who's got another thought? Let's hear some thoughts from over in this side of the room. Lissy, go ahead. Go ahead. You first. You first.
Well,
Did you think this episode was too dark, Lissy?
yeah. I think it kind of shines a light when we're all about what that person's actually doing or why that's there.
Taking a picture of someone gives you a kind of power over that person. If you do it surreptitiously, right, without their permission, right, that's why, right, someone in the police force might not want to be filmed, right, or just some ordinary person might not want to be filmed, right. It gives you a kind of power over them, right. I'm worried they're filming this whole thing, right. Okay, not that worried, but I feel like, well, that could give someone a kind of power over us eventually, right. But having the ability to watch someone, they can't watch you, right. To record someone, they're not recording you. Have you ever seen a standoff, like a cell phone standoff? Like 3 people recording each other. It's like, oh, you're recording me, I will point my phone back at you, right? That's something that didn't exist 10 years ago, right? Why are there these cell phone standoffs, right? If the ability to record someone isn't a kind of power. Like maybe you would point a gun at someone in the old West, slowly back away. Now you point your cell phone, right? And slowly back away. Try to find a quick connection so you can upload the video right before them, right, and control the narrative. All right. Yes.
After watching like the whole series, I feel that each episode plays a part of modern society in a way of like each episode has an issue of society that they completely exaggerate on and show like the worst extreme of. So in this episode, I feel like the people recording and watching this basically torture to this woman who, I mean, obviously completely wrong, but today within like the world star community, like people break into fights, and instead of breaking up a fight, people will first take out their phone and record the fight happening instead of trying to stop it.
All right, it's a difference in degree. All right, yes.
You can trace that same concept back to I think it was the 1960s. Can't think of the woman's name, Kitty, New York City.
Yeah, the bystander effect.
Right.
The bystander. So that received a lot of discussion, right? But some of the recent findings about that incident complicate that it was just pure bystanding, right, that led to that incident. So I think that incident was very complex. Yes?
I just think we feel free now to shame because it is so remote. Because if I had to come shame you, there's a chance that you may get mad at me and do bodily harm to me. Yeah. So I'm not going to say anything. But if I'm 1,000 miles away from you, then I can type in whatever I want.
I hope I don't get made into a meme, right?
Okay. Tim will not.
I have the steep fear of someday being made into a meme.
But I think that's what it is that people didn't shame because you had to do face-to-face.
Yes.
All right? And that then raises your risk of bodily harm. All right? Whereas now, if you're 1,000 miles away, that guy or gal, whoever you were shaming, is not going to get on a plane, fly 1,000 miles over there, find your house, and beat you up. So we can.
Well, it's not just bodily harm. It's you're seeing the reaction of the individual that you're shaming, and that's going to have an impact on you as well.
Yeah. So the consequences are reduced. All right, Kylie.
Yeah.
Too much in this episode, or just right?
I think it was just perfect.
Okay, just perfect. All right. It's pretty riveting.
It brings up the sicker side of the human being, though. I mean, why would you take pleasure in seeing someone, if they did something wrong, tortured?
I think that's what the whole show is about, right? So you get human nature, you add technology, you get a bunch of pathologies.
It's not even a debate, though. I mean, you shouldn't take pleasure in seeing someone else suffer.
What if that was your child?
I don't have kids.
What if it were?
If it was my kids, I'd feel bad for the person who did it.
I wouldn't.
Well, then we're different. Great.
Moving on. Okay, yes.
No, but is she even really the same person after all this time, after having her memories literally wiped night after?
Yeah, there's something absurd about punishing someone who can't even remember their crime, right? So I think that shows she's just a placeholder for whatever vengeance they want to put onto her, right? Yes.
I mean, if you want to argue like for sort of like capital punishment, if you believe in it or not, I think even capital punishment would probably be better for her, for them going.
Right. This is much worse.
Amounts of torture every single day, not knowing who you are.
So I think part of the script is it's supposed to be much worse.
Doing that over and over again goes further and goes way too far into what she she doesn't even, how is it even, you know, fair if she can't understand what she did? Like, she wakes up and she thinks it's her daughter instead of this person that she killed, this kid that she killed.
Go ahead. Oh,
I have no doubt that if we could legally have a theme park like this, that there are people who...
How many of you would visit this theme park? All right, I'm just writing down names. Okay. All right.
I have no doubt that there are people in our society who would go, okay?
We already have that, though, Professor. Right? It's called the internet. Right? That's our theme park.
Yeah, I didn't
All
know
right.
about that. You're right.
All right.
I was thinking about for-profit prisons. Now, you can't go there to observe, okay? But the theme park, I mean, why aren't they more interested in rehabilitating her? If they have this technology to erase her memory, then they could start her over again, re-socialize her, and presumably really rehabilitate her. But hey, they've got the greatest show in town. They're making a lot of money off of this deal.
Yes.
So as long as they can make money off of it, they're going to continue to do it.
All right. What an unforgettable thing. Joe, go
I
ahead.
feel like the point of the park becomes deterrence, and like at that point of the punishment, because at that point she's no longer remembering what she did wrong, and that she can't really be punished for doing the wrong because she can't remember what she did wrong. So I feel like having this being done to her every day and coming to a park and like paying to watch this happen gives people the deterrence factor of like, wow, I wouldn't want this to be me, but I would like sure go watch this, you know, like I feel like that the deterrence factor comes like apparent in this sort of setting.
All right. If you needed a deterrent to film a series of child murders, right, like apparently happened in this crime, right, this would certainly be the deterrent. All right, let's call it a night there. There's still some daylight out there, so go out, enjoy some fresh air, and thank you for coming to my talk. See ya.